We are
regardless of
live.
anything.
Let's just chinwag for the moment so I can see if we're actually on.
Testing,
Always
test.
helps.
It does always help. Come on, YouTube. Don't let me down now. You shared the link out, Palmer.
Where's this one?
Yeah, we have got sound. Hang on, can I hear you, boys?
I hope so.
Hello, hello, testing 1 2 1 2.
Always helps, like, doesn't it?
There you go.
Oh, very good evening, morning, afternoon, or whatever time of day you decided to watch this. Welcome to the first episode of the Fans Chinwag series, where we're looking to get some supporters on and talk about their team's 2024 season and a look ahead to 2025. And this evening we are joined by the lovely Mr. Andrew Dugmore from Birmingham. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
No problem.
So, we're going to start off with the really basic question. Because obviously you're a man of many jobs at Birmingham. How did you get into the stuff you're into and how did you get into following Birmingham?
So very briefly, it was my mum and dad used to date down at the old Perry Bar, and I remember as a kid, my dad had a necklace and it got the Birmingham B on, and I remember saying to him, "What's just being a kid? Oh, what's that?" And he was like, "Oh, it's the Birmingham Brummies." So my first meeting actually was at Dudley Wood, was at Cradley, and I couldn't have been very old. I must have been about 7 maybe, and I remember just being hooked from then on. And then it wasn't around, we didn't have Sky Sports or anything like that. And then you eventually get it, and then Birmingham Cable, if people remember that, and then that was it, Speedway, and then I was just hooked from then on. And then got to 2007, we made our return. I actually missed the first meeting of the season. I actually went to the first league meeting, I think it was. And it's just the excitement and it's the energy of the bikes. When you've got either 4 bikes at the tapes and they're fully revving, or as I know it now, 14 plus bikes in the pits doing their warm up, it's just electric. And it was just was a mad fan. It's like my football. People are into football and they follow their team up and down the country, or they talk about it and do various different things with it. And for me, it's Speedway. And then we go through various different owners, and then the current directors, who there's a friend of mine who's sat on the board, Tracy Smith, as everybody will know, pretty much know her. She was like, "Can you help with the sheets?" And I was like, "Well, I got Leo." She was like, "That's fine." I'm like, "All right, go on, son. Let's go back down to the track." And then he just started from there, really, and then ended up sort of parking the vans at the before the meeting starts, in the back of the pits, and then I think I did that for about a year, and then Tracy was like, "Look, would you look at doing the supporters club, sort of relaunching it?" I was like, "Well, okay." Yeah, let's do it. And so yeah, we sort of did that, and then I've met some really cool people from it. So Steve Rolleston, who was the commercial manager, and started working with him quite closely, and then we get on really well, and obviously Lawrence as well. I think everybody gets on with Lawrence, and then your next week, I sort of got a sponsor on board, and I was like, oh, okay. And then the next minute, you're sort of doing all these other things, and you're going to see sponsors, and then, as you know, Dylan, as well, you're going to see the sponsors, and a rider brings the bike, and they start talking to you about the parts, and then next minute, an 18 grand bike wheels out of the back of the van, and you're just like, what? And and this is all before the season started, and then it's almost like you start doing something, and it leads into something else, and then it's like a drug, and then it's almost like you want more, and then you go for more, and or just things just happen, and as like with the Revies, that started off really small, and now it's got as big as it was at the last meeting of the season, and and the next minute, your lads riding around Leicester, and you're going, where's this come from? If I'd said this to myself in 2007, that my future son would be riding an electric bike, not just around Birmingham but around other tracks in the UK, I would not have believed you at all.
And what is that? We will come on to the Revy stuff a little bit later, more in depth, but how did that come about? Has Leo always been into Speedway since he can remember, or was it, how did that kind of happen?
He had no choice. No, do you know what, right? He was with me, and it was just like, okay, well, we'd got over COVID, and then, we could open back up and whatever, and then we took him down, and it was just to see. I just didn't know. And then, he was on my shoulders, and there was one particular time, there was a press and practice, and I think it was the second season that he'd started going, and at that moment, at that press and practice, he was glued to my hip, watching the bikes go around, and I think I held him there for about 2 hours, and every time I put him down, it was like he was bawling his eyes out, he was crying his little heart out, picking back up, and he would stop and he'd just watch the bikes, and I've got the photos of him on an old balance bike, trying to turn the bike in, and while we're cleaning up the sheets at the time, and he was, that was it. That's when it started for him.
And you've been through some eras of Birmingham, different promotions, different owners, National League days, Championship days, Premiership days. How do they all differ from each other, from the ownerships to the difference in league as well?
That's a good question, actually. Well, Graham Jury was like obviously the judge. I remember him. He sacked someone there, wasn't it? It was Ostergaard. He sacked him, and he sacked him on the boat or something like that. We were off to the Isle of Wight, and I remember that news breaking out, and you're like, "Oh my days," Tony Moll was fantastic, with what he did, not just to bring us back, but to continue it for as long as he did, and then. We had Gary Pratchett own it for a little while, and I believe he went back to Moley. Then David Mason and Peter Mason took it over. And it was just all different times, because it was. I remember when the new silencer would come out, and I remember it was like I was stood on bend 2, and the bikes would roll down to bend 3 and 4, and you'd be able just to have a conversation. Or so it seemed, and then it was just like that, and the levels of racing as well obviously differ. For me, when I started in 2007, being in what was then the Premiership, I hadn't seen anything else other than that level. So it's only by going down or up, you then see the differences. You notice the times, obviously, but it's. I remember a great victory against Wolves at Perry Bar, when they brought, they tried to bring everybody that they had such a fantastic team. I think Woofy might have been in the team at the time, and we beat them at home, and that was a good feeling. That was a very good feeling. And then you've got the rivalry, with Cradley as well, in the National League, when Cradley were running out of Perry Bar, I'd go down, and me and my mates would stand in a different place, so it felt like you was on an away track, but you wasn't. You was at Perry Bar. So it's I I've loved it. I've loved every single moment. Don't get me wrong. There's been some awesome times. I remember exactly where I was when we won the league in the National League. I was in the car on the way back from a rehearsal or something, and on the old flyover at Perry Bar, going past the track. Funny enough, but we were riding away, and obviously we've had some extremely low points where, you know, we don't complete a season, which we won't talk about that much. But you know, I've absolutely loved it, and I continue to love it.
And how do the promotion, the consortium now compared to, you know, to what there has been before? Because there's this constant battle of, oh, we don't know if we're going to be back next year, and then the consortium find a way, and then everything runs again. It's like, how is this different to any of those other times?
I think that it's determination from the consortium, and you know, we'll never know for sure. But had other promotion or directors been involved, not, I'm just saying, you know, taking it away from the people that are in charge at the minute, I don't think we'd be around. And I think it's the determination of Nigel and everybody else to keep it going. And I think I do believe that there's an air of importance to keep it going, because we are solely, you know, the last ones, other than, you know, your nearest one after that is Leicester.
And obviously, you've touched on there that the last remaining Midlands club, the history of, you know, Wolves, the history of Cradley, the solidarity, that the foundations that were there, and then Birmingham's got a rich history itself as well, but it's still the last one standing despite all these issues. That's got to be a gratifying feeling.
Yeah, quite scary as well, to be fair, because, you know, I mean, to be fair, you know that coming from Wolves, that maybe possibly we wouldn't have known each other in the way that we do, had, you know, you being down at Birmingham as much as you are, because you would have been still at Wolves. So I think it's just, it'll be a real sad day, you know, in the area when the time is done. And, you know, I hope that I really hope it's far away, but only smarties have the answer.
And it is a when, not an if. You know, every year it's like, you know, we've got this long left, and there's always that little bit of hope, and somehow the hope comes to fruition, and there's another season, and then we had it again this, you know, for next year. There was a situation, and we managed to get to where we are now. But it does feel like it's an inevitability eventually as well.
Yeah, so I've just taken the approach of just take every day, you know, and just enjoy it. And I started doing that about midway through this season, and just sort of started going, actually, do you know what? There's only 5 meetings left at home. Okay, because you know, you wait in the off season, and it feels like forever. As soon as you get to that season, as you guys will know, bang, and the next minute you know, it's like, whoa, hello, playoffs. Where did that go? You know. So yeah, I'm taking every day, or everything that you do with Speedway, whether it be, you know, supporters club stuff, or you know, going to see people, or doing whatever, just taking it. That's another reason why, you know, I did some of the away tracks last year, which I think there was about 4 in the end. So, and those memories, you know, being at Ipswich for the last meeting of the season when we won, you know, being there with Leo to say, hey, we did it, you know. I'll always remember that. You know, the trip to Bellevue, obviously Leicester. You know, it's Sheffield, of course, and standing with Phil, looking at the crowd and being on the centre green, going, "This is just bonkers," you know. So yeah, just taking every experience as it comes and just trying to make some cracking memories out of it.
But it, like you say there, it's not just through the season. Obviously, Lawrence puts on social media a lot. There's a cracking bunch of volunteers every Sunday, rain or shine. They're there. Once the club goes and the track goes, that goes too. So it'll be a completely different lifestyle that you then have to get accustomed to.
It has, when I was down there, like last, I do recall somebody saying, "Well, if this goes, we're gonna have to meet up once a month because I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself." But no, it's a family. I know Nigel has said this before that he wanted to build it like a family, but whether it be the directors with the fans, everybody's all together and stuff. But when you drill into, and you mentioned the volunteers there, it is like a family. And whether you just able to do race day, race night, whatever, or you're able to go down there on a Sunday or do whatever, it's very welcoming, and you might not be able to go every week to do something on a Sunday, but every pair of hands is so valued and so welcomed as well that it's almost like you go to see the family as people would do to go and have their Sunday dinner. Well, their Sunday dinner is Lawrence's cooking out of out of, out of the little kitchen area, like. But and it's great, and the people are great, and they work so hard. Pete and Sid and everybody else, Melvin, Tony, Bailey, and Chris. And Elliot as well. They all work really, really hard, and people don't realise like the amount of work that has to go in to take an air fence down. And a bag takes like it's like a 4-person job. And then as they take the kickboards out to check them, and then you might find, oh, okay, we need to replace blah 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 kickboards. And then you start racking up the costs of how much do we need, how much money is it, and you're like, whoa. And people don't see that, but they just get on with it, and and they're a cracking bunch of people as well.
And you mentioned the family vibe there. Obviously, me and Palmer talk about this a lot. You weren't there on that occasion, but a couple of years back when we went to when the Brummies were in the Championship at Scunny, and we got thunderstormed off in the car park, and Palmer in his Scunny coat, me in my Wolves coat, all the Brummies boys and the promotion, and Lawrence and Nigel were like, come and join us, and we just sat in a beefeater in Scunny having a laugh and stuff, and that was the family feel. Like, I knew Steph and I knew a little bit about Lawrence and stuff, but everybody else was just like, just come and join us, and that's kind of the feel you get from within at Birmingham, innit?
Yeah, and do you know what? Through the various different riders and different times, there were, there's been feelings like that before. I mean, it's different. It's different now. Rider flies in. They're then, from airport to track, race, then to airport, and then back out to whatever country they're going to. But I can recall a time when James Birkinshaw was riding for Scunthorpe in the National League, and it was his first meeting of the season, and I think he got last place in his first ride, and then he won the rest, and he got heat 15, and then decided to as he was doing his victory lap, to stop right by where we were stood, turn his back wheel into the dirt, and then caked us full of shale. And then we was in the boozer, afterwards, just having a drink, and he got his guitar out, and we were singing songs and stuff, and it was like, there's been like this thing about family all the way through, and when they say it's a family sport, they really mean it, like with Leo, tearing up and down the pits on his very first Revy bike, and then bless them, they put the name up on the pit board, and and it's just lovely, and I think that's what would be that's going to be the really sad thing about it, when, if the time comes, that those sort of things, those memories, those making those moments will eventually stop.
So we'll touch on now the 2024 season. It was obviously a situation of move up or close. The decision was taken to move up. It's a completely different kettle of fish. Everything's a lot more professional and stuff. How did that resonate with you? Because obviously it was Brummies' first time back in the top flight since I think 2014 when that closed. And so how did that sort of change from the Championship to the Premiership affect you and your roles at the club as well?
I think at first, I think and I'm just talking from what I was then was as the fan's voice. Well, I wasn't then, but sorry, but as a fan, there's obviously a lot of skeptical feelings about it all because of what happened before. But it hasn't, so that's good. Just everything just needed to pull together. I mean, the next minute, you've got these, big, massive advertisement boards that are going up in the pits, and it has a different feel. And then, other than having BSN in, you get this whole truckload of stuff that turns up and it's Eurosport, and you've got Phil Morris, doing what he does on race nights when the TV's there, and you've got lights everywhere and cameras everywhere, and there is definitely a change. He's more professional I remember I walked into the pits for the first time when it was all set up, ready to go, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, we've arrived. Welcome to the Premiership, everyone. But it's things like uniforms that people were wearing. So when you walk through the turnstiles, people have got Birmingham t-shirts on. The guys on the track had got overalls, but it's all the same. So yeah, it is a massive change just visually, and then you notice that the times get a little bit quicker as well as you're watching.
And we'll touch on the team. Obviously, the team that started the season was a risk. I think there was no two ways about that. Everyone thought certain riders in that team were a risk. The team that finished the season, had it started the season, I think it could have been a better year. But how would you sum up the first year back in the Premiership?
Learning curve. Absolutely. We was always, as it's been well documented, we was always on the back foot anyway, because we had to go to the AGM, we had to wait to see if we would be accepted, blah, 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 blah. And so then, you'd literally got the riders that were left, so to speak. That's no disrespect to the riders that signed for us at the start. I'm make sure that that's said, but, you look at somebody like the team that Sheffield put together, but they'd been able to do that because we wasn't able to have conversations with, say, particular riders of that nature. So it was just a learning curve, and I think for any team that comes up, there is an element of we not like learning the ropes, but it's just done in a different way. I was told by somebody that it's a completely different ball game. And I can tell you it is, absolutely is. It's a lot more pressured. There is a championship meeting, from the previous year. There wasn't as much air of it wasn't as tense in the pits. Getting to the Premiership, and whoa, you could feel that it was like there was a lot more shouting coming from people in the pits or riders who haven't scored their first place. Whereas perhaps you wouldn't get that as much in the Championship.
And just touching on away from Birmingham a little bit, you as a dad as well, there's, Birmingham signed the world number 2, Freddie Lindgren, obviously the best racer outside of Bartosz to race in England, and then there was the meeting where the Nations was just after as well, and Bartosz Marslit was there, Patrick Dudek was there, and Leo got to meet them. What's that like as a parent to watch your son meeting, the best riders in the sport?
Well, it was actually Mrs. Big Boy that told me that they were there. And I saw, as I was walking around into the pits for something or other, and Nigel was like, "You seen who's there?" And I was like, "No," and he sort of walked past me, and I was like, I don't know what he's going on about. And Sarah called me up. She was like, "Look, look." I was like, "Oh my good God, that's Patrick Dudek, and that's Bartes. Hold on, what are they doing there?" And after I got over my fanboy moment, and and we got to, Leo got to meet him, and photos were taken and stuff. Leo was just cool as a cucumber. "You all right? How you doing? Yeah, good." Smile, shake hand, walk off. I'm like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." Um, but it was just really, that was surreal, actually. To be fair, that I said about making memories and holding those memories quite close to you. That is one of them. Absolutely, that is one of them. I was saying to him as we were walking back, I was like, you know who you've just met?" And he went, "Speedway rider." Love that about him. He's just like, "Rider that?" I was like, "Yeah, but you've just met the world champion," and he just went, "And?" "Yes, you over there."
He's the most quick-witted at the time 4.5-year-old ever.
He's funny. He's really funny.
And a lot of people were quite sceptical, especially, people were saying, "Oh, signing Freddie Lindgren will shut Birmingham down." The season ended, and Freddie was an absolute breath of fresh air when he came in as well, round the pits, met everybody every week, gave everything, really attacked it, whereas some people who were signed maybe didn't quite give it as much. And I don't think that's any secret. But Freddie came in, and with he's the second best rider in the world, the best rider statistically in British Speedway at that point, and he was just one of the lads and chipped in and very approachable for everybody.
Yeah, and I think it showed, like, we obviously needed to make a change, but what it did show was that there's a determination from, directors, promotion, however you want to say it. I was lucky enough to be stood on the turnstiles when he did his first laps, Freddie, and it's the only thing you could hear was that bike. Everybody else was just dead silent, and I remember saying to my dad, I said, "It even revs differently. The bike does, but the sound from it. It's just like it's at a different pitch than the other bikes, and it was almost like you had to pinch yourself. It's like, it's Freddie Lindgren's riding Perry Bar. What, Wolves legend. What's going? What is happening here? And and he's such a lovely guy. He's really pleasant to talk to. He's very welcoming, like you say, and he'll go up to people, he'll have photos with kids and families, and talk to fans and sign autographs and all this. He's the proper superstar that you want a superstar to be. Do you know what I mean? And he was an absolute breath of fresh air for sure.
And that was a real coup. He'd spent over a decade at Wolves, never ridden for another British club, and then Birmingham pull off the signing, and it showed that there was the intent there, and the people responded, and Freddie gave it everything. It didn't always go to plan, but you saw the real superstar when he maxed out at Ipswich and ended his British stint on a Hogs, obviously not coming back next year. But he gave everything he had whilst he was there, and I think both parties benefited from it.
Yeah, because his performance in the GP started, getting better, and I think once he got dialed in, to British, he'd been out for not riding Britain for a few seasons, hadn't he? So I think once he got back into things, it was, like you say, it was a win-win for both parties, and absolutely, he was a draw for people to come and see. Oh, let's go and see Dan Bewley versus Freddie, and it's like, oh, that's like a GP, like, two GP riders going against each other at Berry Bar. What's going on? It was great, and as you say, maxing out at Ipswich again. That was pretty cool.
And just before we switch over to Dan and a few things about Leo's racing, just finally, the team for 2025, as we sit here now, there's 5 announced. What are your opinions on the riders announced so far in Tobias Michalek, Keenan Rue, Matti Zagar, Jonas Jeppesen and Jason Edwards?
I think it's a really good looking team so far. I think it's gonna surprise a few people when we get onto the track. You know, we've got some experience in there. Jason Edwards goes round our place really well, as does Keenan Roof for that matter, actually. So you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes. I hope there's a challenge for the number one rider. You know, that we have two foreign, and I think we will. I think we will once they get dialed in, and you know, you're gonna get action with Zagar. You know, there's no two ways about that. So I'm excited. Actually, every time I always message someone saying, "Well done for that," when it gets announced, because so far I think the signs have been great.
And now we'll give over to Palmer, so I hope he's done his own work on this one to talk about Leo. Obviously, we want to touch on Leo as well, with him being a D&D Media sponsored rider.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, that is true. I suppose we ought to get our sponsored riders in at some point, aren't we? What got him into doing the actual racing? Obviously, you've explained how he got into Speedway itself, but what got him into actually doing the Revy racing?
Leo's really, he likes real things, so you know, he likes to see. So he's got a set of planes that he plays around with, and then we'll go to air shows, and he can make the relationship. You know, he bring the two together, and so he's really cool. You know, he likes the real stuff. So seeing the bikes, and then it was like, well, okay, well, let's. I think I saw. It was a very early post of Cruise. I mean, I'm talking way back when, not so much the Cruise Harris that you see now. And I remember Revy, and I went and researched it, and I remember talking to Mum and Dad, and I was like, hey, look, you know, there's this balance bike, and you know, let's just see how he gets on. And then I took him down to the track on a Sunday, put his helmet on and his gloves and whatever have you. And I went, right, this is how you do it. And it's on the little setting. This is your brake. And I turned my back for like 2 seconds and he'd gone. And he was literally tearing down where the vans park. And then, you know, parent, you know, moment in your mouth, kind of heart moment in your mouth. I'm like running after him going, whoa, 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 stop. And he's like, Dad, what? And I'm like, okay. And so we turned back round, and then he just shot past me, going up to the pits. And I'm like, how did it just happen to say to Lawrence, take him out on the track? Yeah. And that's it then. Oh. Next minute, you know, he's doing laps round Perry Bar, and you know, Nigel Tolley's been his start marshal. I think everybody at some point has been a start marshal for him. You know, and then it just started becoming. You know, he used to race. You know, when we were watching the meetings, he would go round in a circle, but he would go round at the same time as the bikes were, but just on a slower speed. And then, you know, it was just one thing literally led to another, and then you get we're gonna look. I think there was 3 lads at the time, and we're gonna do a demonstration. You're up for it? It was like, yeah, and then. Next minute, you know, you got people in front, you know, fans watching because they're ready for the main meeting, and he's tearing around Perry Bar, and in his first 4 laps at Perry Bar, he went down the home straight on his parade lap because because that's what he does, and he waved at the crowd. And I kid you not, somebody sent me the footage of him going, and he's going to my mum and dad, hello, like this with his arm up in the air. And I was just like, oh, that's it then. this is the thing. And then he gets off his bike and he goes, we're going again. I was like, oh, no, that's it. No, we're back around the other side now. Oh, do it next week. Do you want to? Yeah. And that was it. And then that's how it started, really.
Obviously, the Revy sort of competition, if you like, has gone up and up and up over the course of the year. Do you sort of feel as though this is sort of like this almost a new start for people wanting to get into the sport at a young age?
Absolutely, 100%. There's obviously different companies out there as well, but the one that, it looks like a speedway bike, and I think that's what the appeal is as well. And kids watch football matches. They want to go play on a football, for a local kids team, and grassroots starts up there, and then some lucky people get to play for make a professional living out of it. And I think this has opened up the door for, because otherwise, you're talking of PV50s and or going on to a junior bike and then going up 125, 250, bang, and then you hit the 500. But for someone, I mean, he's 6 now. For a kid, PB50 would be not yet. I don't think I'm ready for that yet. But but it's a great way of starting, and we've got such an age range of kids that come and do it now. I think the last count was like 12 different families come and do it, and and they're all from all different ages, and it's great because they could be the next. Well, they are the next generation of kids that will want to get onto an actual bike.
And obviously, you mentioned going on to actual bikes. Do you sort of feel, because obviously I've worked closely with Paul Bowen on the e-speedway suggestion. Do you think there could be progression from maybe going from revvies to e-bikes or bigger e-bikes in the future?
I think it could be a thing. I think we're really at the beginning of all of this, and I think that a little bit of it is we'll see where this goes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if we go through the channels of how it is, there's 3 different revvy bikes that you can, or sizes of revvy bikes, and then once you've done the top one, I think you then are starting to look at a junior bike, or you do go full scale and with a 125 or something. But then there is this thing of what is going to happen with an e-bike? Is it going to become a thing? So actually, you could go down that road, and I think we're literally writing sort of like we're writing it as we go, so to speak. Lawrence does a lot of work with the kids anyway, and other tracks are getting involved with it also, and I think it's how well, because that's the thing, it's accessible for families to do as well, and that's the big one, because speedway, as we know, is extremely expensive when you get a bike, but this is the starting point, and I think it's what speedway needed. I really do.
And touching on what Speedway needed now, obviously the Premiership had a big sort of shuffle up this year. Obviously we got a big main sponsor in Rome Motor Oil, and everything just looks so much professional. Do you feel as though now, as someone that watches Premiership racing on a regular basis, is the Premiership now in a better place than say 5 years ago?
I would say so. I think the first good move was having Phil Morris in, and you've got somebody who's looking after it and pushing it in one direction. Obviously, not everybody's going to agree with decisions made, or but the thing is, though, the sport's got to evolve. That's it. And it's okay saying, well, back in the day when you had this, we're not there. We're here now, and we've got to move with the times. Football did it with VAR. We've got to do it as well. And I've always followed the Premiership anyway. But I think that the product is. I do think the product is better. It's starting to become slicker, more. It looks more professional, and yeah, I'm generally excited to see where it goes. You know, I just let's just be hoped it's always in a positive way, and you know, I'm sure with Phil Morris at the helm that you know we will get to where his vision of how he sees it. You know, from working with him at the Fans Voice, I really believe that he'll achieve what he wants.
And just one last thing, obviously, because you mentioned the Fans Voice, how much of an impact has that had on the Premiership?
As in the Fans Voice,
Yes.
um, it's not been as it's a difficult one, that is, because we I suppose we walked into an area that we didn't really we were sort of writing the things that you could do with it. I know you know, David at Leicester has done so much work there. You know, you got Speedway Fans Network UK as well with Samantha Loriman as well. She's done so much work and has fed so much information to Phil via polls and research and various bits and pieces that they've done over there. You know, we put a couple of letters together to the promotion and saying, well, look, you know, from feedback that we've received or I'd received, the fans are saying this. There you go. And you know, and some of it was, you know, it was always gratefully received. We could have had some more meetings, that's for sure. You know, as a group, but there was you know, the guys have got their WhatsApp group, which makes it easier to communicate between, you know, the various reps and with Phil Morris as well. And you know, I do hope that it works for him. I mean, I've stepped away from it now, but I do hope that it works, because it could be such a wicked thing, and I do believe that it can be. You know, it's just putting the actions into practice.
And just before we wrap up, I've got one more for you, because otherwise I know somebody who might be looking for a new admin if you don't give him a mention. What has it been like for you as a dad watching the relationship with Big Boy and Leo? It almost, cause obviously I've seen it firsthand, it looks like an almost brotherly relationship they've got going on now.
Yes, we've got to mention Mr. Big Boy. Yeah, do you know what? He's been awesome, and the family love Leo to pieces. They really do, and you want to hear him on the track walks. They're so funny. Like he'll walk to him and go, right, okay, you need to go on that side of the track, and Leo will go, why? And it's like, because you know, it's wet, and. but then, in all fairness to Leo, he does sit there and he does listen to him, and then, you know, we were trying to get him to you know, when the checkered flag goes, right, move over to the white line, because you know that's where you go when you know you're finished or you need to retire or whatever. And then there's little things like that. He's done that to him, and it's been really cool to see. And you know, it's like, yeah, Leo's his little protege, I think, and it's really cool because he's a great mate. He's Big Boy, and to have that into Leo is it's really special, actually, to be fair.
And that checkered flag you mentioned, would that be the same one that Lawrence holds out and Leo drives straight past?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a bit of a story to that. I sort of said, you know when the checkered flag goes on it, he's like, yeah. I went, just do another lap. And then I went, I'm only joking. Well, he didn't hear that bit. So he put the checkered flag out and he was waving it around. And I heard the bike power up, and I was like, oh no. And then Leo was tearing down the back straight. and you got all the others that have stopped, and Leo's still going around, doing his lap. And I could feel a pair of eyes. Dugmore! I'll get him to stop. I'm like crossing my hands like when he's coming up to where we stand, and I'm like, you gotta stop. Oh, that was that again. That's one of those moments. That's one of those moments.
I think that's the perfect position to wrap up on. So I'll let Palmer do his usual shtick. But before we wrap up, tomorrow night we've got another one of these with one of our sponsored riders.
Yes, we have. Yeah, we'll be having a bit of a chinwag with young Ryan Ingram, obviously a D&D Media sponsored rider again. So look out for that tomorrow, about the same sort of time-ish.
Yeah, about that.
But for Monday night, thank you very, very much for joining us. Massive shout out Andy Dugmore for joining us on this little chinwag. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, sir.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here.
We'll see you all again.